to Solving for the Undefined podcast. I'm your host, Johanna, founder of Miss Kuiper's Classroom, the place that equips teachers in creating a healthy math classroom where students can thrive, no matter their academic abilities. But it's not always about the numbers, and that's why I'm here, bringing you the formulas to solve your problems, math and otherwise, plus strategies on cultivating that necessary math mindset. And that's what you can count on. Hello, and welcome to our part 3 of Preparing for the First Day of School series. I'm super excited because I now have a microphone arm thing that clamps onto my desk, so that way I don't have to precariously stack boxes to have a microphone near my face. And now it's hands-free. I'm super excited. So before we jump into all the goodness I have for you today, I wanted to say thank you to all of you who have joined the Reignite Your Math Classroom conference. It's been a long journey, and all of us are super excited to have you. So thank you so much. We appreciate your support, and we hope that you are able to take part in all of it, the videos, the lives, the goodie bag items, because I want you to have the full value of the experience because you deserve it. And I hope it helps start your year off strong as you reignite your math classroom. Okay, now on to our featured presentation. Cue the VHS coming soon. No, that's the wrong one. Now on to our featured presentation, whatever it was. Anyway, over the past 2 episodes, I've shared with you how our brain learns and retains information, as well as how growth mindset and intrinsic motivation play a key role in that learning process. Today, I'm going to be tying in that information with how we can strategically use that neuroscience to our benefit. Back in episode 16, we talked about how our brain has 2 different modes, the focus mode and the relaxed or diffused mode. The first is when you are concentrated on a subject or material that you have at hand, while the second is when you give time to let your brain relax. The new connections of the material you learned form new neural patterns in your brain. And in order to learn more effectively, we need to be able to utilize both of those modes in kind of an alternate manner. So focus on something, take a break. Focus on something, take a break. But I did some research on how to more effectively do that than just popcorning back and forth. So what I found was that people use what's called the Pomodoro technique. Now, this is a time management strategy that was developed by Francesco Cirillo in the 1980s, and it's focused on breaking work into intervals followed by short breaks. So here's kind of the order that it follows. First, decide on a task that must be done. And there's an element of fun. Mary Poppins. Anyway, so this could be like your instruction time where you are doing your direct instruction or doing notes, or students are working on an activity. And the second is to set a 25-minute timer. That's the traditional amount of time, but I looked up how long middle school students can focus, and it's between 10 and 12 minutes. Some research showed it could be longer, but I think the 10 to 12 minutes kind of works with what I've seen my students be able to do. Then you're going to work on that task for that amount of time. When the timer rings, you're going to take a 5-minute break. And then every 4 Pomodoros, using little air quotes here, you're supposed to take a 15 to 30-minute break. So that's just the structure. And I'm going to kind of focus in on the focus part of it and then the relax, the break part, so you can kind of see the different things. So let's talk about the focus mode first. So how can we in our classrooms support students during this focused mode? So firstly, we can increase the engagement and the buy-in of the activity. I know that sounds simple, but let's kind of break it down. Firstly, when you are teaching something, connect it to the real world. Give it purpose and meaning behind why we are asking students to learn this and when they will use it. So talking about how graphing, you'll be using the idea of graphing throughout your entire student academic math career, as well as you use graphs in a lot of different fields. So giving them specific, tangible reasons why we're using that. And also allowing for collaboration. So 2 heads are better than 1. But giving the students space to turn and talk or work with a partner gives them kind of like a guiding force, I guess, to give them more buy-in and engagement because someone else is doing it with them. And third, give students choice. One of the easiest ways to do that is if you're going through a set of problems, ask students to pick 3 of the 5 to work on, or even the choice of where to sit. One of my favorite things that I found during my second year of teaching was called Starbucks mode. Now, Starbucks mode is where students are in Starbucks, aka the classroom, but they don't know anyone else there. Because when you go to Starbucks, at least as a college student I did, you are there to do work and you do not want to interact with other people. So you sit down, you put your headphones on, you listen to music while you do your work. And part of this is you get to choose where you sit. So I had students who chose to sit on the floor, they'd sit in their chair, this is the one time I'd let them sit like on top of a desk if they really wanted to, or on a countertop, or if you have like a couch or flexible seating. Those are different things that you can add into Starbucks mode. But it always increased my students' engagement and buy-in because they got to listen to music, and I gave some parameters around that. But my students always really enjoyed doing Starbucks mode. And we'll come back to choice later when we talk about growth mindset and intrinsic motivation. Another thing to help with focus mode is to model it. So if you're releasing your students to work on something, but then you go to your desk and kind of like check out, your students are not going to be as motivated to do the work. So you need to be actively involved. So walking around the room, engaging in conversations, whether it's the math or otherwise, and stop, scan, and breathe. This is one of those envoy techniques that I've talked about previously, but during your purposeful walk around the classroom, you want to stop, stand still, and scan the room. And by scan the room, I mean look at each of the students' desks and look at their work. This kind of tells them that you're aware of everything that's happening, as well as that you are present and that you care. Then after your slow scan around the students' desks, you can continue moving. This also can help a rowdy or restless class kind of settle back down. With this, another thing to increase focus mode is to have a calm environment. So focus takes place when students are not worried or stressed about anything else. So that stand and scan adds to this calming environment. But think about the noise level in the classroom, the lighting in the classroom. Like lighting has a huge effect on having a calm environment. Think about decoration, everything. It all contributes to the vibe your environment has. So we want to make sure that's a calm environment. With that, be predictable as a teacher. You want to make sure that your emotions are always semi-predictable by the students. When you are predictable as a teacher, it allows students to know what to expect, lets them feel safe and secure, which in the long run will help them be able to focus because they're not worried about anything else. So that's how you can kind of help bring an environment that helps students focus in your classroom. Now let's talk about those break times. So I guess for us, it's 12 minutes, taking a 5-minute break. During those purposeful breaks or synapse, because synapses in your brain, a synap. So funny. You could have students work on something else like a riddle, a team turn and talk, or take a walk. So exercise is shown to activate the brain, increased memory, and comprehension. Back before COVID, I took these classes about enhancing your nonverbal communication in terms of classroom management and building student relationships. So inside of those classes, every maybe 2 hours or so, we would take a 15-minute break. During those 15-minute breaks, we were encouraged to take a walk around campus because the instructor knew that walking or exercise helped activate your brain, boost memory and comprehension. And because it was a break, it put our brain into that diffused mode, which helped build those new neural pathways. But sometimes taking a walk isn't always something that we are able to do within our classroom. So one of my favorite things as a brain break is called Guess That Slogan activities. Now, I've talked about these before, but I absolutely love them. I think students really love them as well. So I typically use them in a team fashion, but they can be done solo as well. So the way they work is, say the topic is cereal. Students are given a list of cereal brand slogans. Then they are asked to figure out what cereal brand goes with that slogan. Like, they're great. They have to guess Frosted Flakes. Each version that I think I have cereal, car brands, fast food, candy, and popular brands. So each of those versions comes with 2 different styles within it. So one with a word bank, one with no word bank. That way you can choose which will work best for your students. If you haven't snagged these already, make sure you do so. I'll leave a link in the show notes. Each one of these is $1, or you can buy the bundle for $4. Some other quick brain breaks that I like to do is stand up, touch 4 walls, 3 desks, and 2 chairs. Just something that gets students up, moving. It's quick, it's easy. I know it's not necessarily a 5-minute break, but it still is a quick change in something and gets them back to be able to focus once again. All right, so now let's take those and kind of tie it into growth mindset and intrinsic motivation. In the last episode, I kind of dropped the bomb on growth mindset being tied to the part of your brain that is related to learning and control, as well as how that part of the brain is responsible for things like planning, short-term memory, attention, as well as motivation. So all of those things are intertwined together in the same area of our brain. So if we can work on growth mindset, we're working on the ability to learn. If we're working on motivation, we're also working on the ability to focus our attention. It's all intertwined together. One thing to note when it comes to fostering a growth mindset inside of your classroom is it's not an easy thing, especially if you are a teacher who doesn't have a growth mindset yourself yet. It's going to be a long process in order to implement this and create that environment of growth mindset. So, similarly to the focus mode, one of the best ways that you can foster a growth mindset in your students and in your classroom is to model it. So, model it in the way that you are speaking. At a basic level, the way you want to incorporate it is to involve shifting the emphasis on the outcome of something, but shifting it towards the process and the effort and the learning steps that lead to the positive outcome. So here's an example of kind of changing the way you talk to incorporate that growth mindset. So here's a fixed mindset statement. Don't worry, you'll get it if you keep trying. But switching it around to something like this. That feeling you're experiencing of math being hard is the feeling of your brain developing. So it's not focusing on the actual outcome of getting it right. Like you'll keep getting it, or you'll get it if you keep trying, but it's okay that it feels hard right now because that's your brain working to better understand it in the long run. So that growth mindset still demands performance, but it's not simply rewarding the effort, but also looking at why it's feeling that way, if that makes sense. So I know that might seem overwhelming up front, but one of the biggest ways that you can start changing the way you are speaking is simply add the word yet. Add the word yet to your statements. So if someone says, I can't do this, say, I can't do it yet. Or something I hear my students say often is, I don't get it. And then I have them repeat it, I don't get it yet. Because even just adding that simple thing is a signal in their brain saying, oh, I'm going to be able to get it. It's just maybe not in those past moments. Another thing that we can do to kind of promote growth mindset in our classroom is to normalize struggle. It's just part of the learning process. It's not bad to struggle at something. Similarly, what we talked about in the last episode, failure is a part of success. It is what leads us towards success. Like Thomas Edison saying, oh, I figured out 99 ways to not make a light bulb, which led me to the one way that you do make a light bulb. So failure is just a piece of success. Oh, I saw this really cool thing on Pinterest today as I was looking at stuff for my decorations for my classroom. It said, mistakes are expected, inspected, and respected. So when those things are in place in our classroom, we're normalizing the struggle, we're normalizing and embracing the idea of yet we're providing that perfect environment to foster growth mindset. So one other thing with growth mindset before we move into intrinsic motivation is provide challenges. So we want to provide challenges for students that stimulate their mind, that maybe have them struggle because we're normalizing that struggle, but a particularly hard math problem or something kind of stretches the abilities and provides them the opportunity for them to demonstrate growth mindset. If we are not providing a place for students to practice that struggle and practice the idea of growth mindset, it's not just going to come to them. We need to have them experience what it would be like to use a growth mindset. All right, let's talk about intrinsic motivation. So remember, intrinsic motivation is us doing an activity for the inherent satisfaction of doing it rather than the outcome of doing it. Meaning that we are moved to act for the fun or the challenge of the activity rather than the consequence of not doing it or the pressures or rewards given by doing this thing. So the way that we can increase intrinsic motivation inside of our classroom is to allow choice. When students are given choice in something, they are then allowed to use the motivation within themselves to choose which problems or tasks they want to do. This is why choice boards are such a great thing to use in your classroom. So say you are practicing exponent operations. With this, you could give students the choice of which operations they want to practice first, or you can give them 3 separate activities and have them choose which one. Or similarly, like I talked before, is have them choose 3 of the 5 problems to work on. Just this little bit of choice, little bit of living space, little bit of choice. That was an Aladdin reference. Allows them to use that intrinsic motivation and give them the opportunity to put the effort into which ones they want to. And because they had the choice of what activity or which problems to do, they are doing the activity for the fun of it or for the pleasure, I guess, of the discovery of the new knowledge of it. So it gives them a sense of ownership over it as well, which then can lead to some fostering of growth mindset. So kind of a little bit of a full circle for you. All right. So that is what I have for you today. We talked about focus mode, how to help that, how to help the rest mode or diffused mode of our brain, and tied it in a little bit with growth mindset and intrinsic motivation. And I know many of you start school up this week, so I hope this was helpful in bringing you some preparation for the beginning days of school. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to email me or drop me a DM. So have a wonderful week. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. To find all the links and resources to things talked about in this episode, head on over to MissKuipersClassroom.com and click on podcast.